'Cause like a winter tonight, I thought I would always have light. The quick flash that you gave to me, so dark I could barely see. Looking
from wherever you are around the world, welcome and thank you for joining us. Today we're going to be exploring two interesting subjects: explaining evil and seeking the sacred, with a prolific author by the name of Dr. J. Harold Ellens. He is a professor at Ecumenical Theological Seminary. He has authored and contributed over 270 books. You didn't mishear me. That's right, over 270 books. Welcome to the Circle, Dr. J. Harold Ellens.
It's lovely to be on.
The two books I referenced earlier is Explaining Evil. You can see it right here. We also have Seeking the Sacred, his newest book, right here. Well, what motivated you to write this book? We'll talk about the first one, Explaining Evil, and then your most recent, Seeking the Sacred. But what motivated you to write Explaining the Evil?
Well, for a long time, I've been concerned about the fact that there's such a preoccupation with evil. People may wonder about whether they believe in God, but they certainly believe in evil. And it disturbs me, since there is no such thing as an evil force ontologically or in terms of actual being out there. The only thing out there that there really is God, the God of grace and mercy. And for us to talk about evil as though it exists concretely and tangibly gives it a kind of reification. It gives it a kind of sense of reality. And so when the publisher suggested that I explore that and added a couple of volumes on exploring and explaining evil, I thought it was a great opportunity.
Indeed. Do you think it's inherent in human nature to anthropomorphize evil?
Well, it may be. It may be a result of the fact that we're all born scared. We come down the birth canal bumping and splashing, and when we actually are hit this reality of this present world, we all feel pretty inadequate and pretty anxious, and it's an unknown world. It's a world of danger and threat, and in which we have no control, no way of gaining any kind of traction as infants. And so it's possible that we, from the outset, start out with a relatively high experience of anxiety and the possibility or the reality of pain and discomfort. And we may interpret that as an unfortunate thing and eventually give it the name of evil and try to find ways of explaining that. And so it may be inherent to humans.
Do you also think maybe, I'm talking several thousands of years ago, people maybe created God due to these unknown fears, which they labeled fear, and they thought, well, we're going to have a counter against this fear, and we'll create God, whether it be one God, monotheism, or polytheism?
Well, I think there is inherent in human nature an intuitive sense of the presence of that which is beyond us, something more. The best possible explanation that we can get of our experience of reality always leaves us with a feeling that there must be something more. And that sort of beyond us kind of experience certainly has something to do with the fashioning of God. But the reality is that it's probably true that humans project and create God, and God creates humans. That is, it probably is real that there is an inherent and intuitive sense in human beings of the presence of God or of the divine spirit everywhere because there's so much you can't explain unless you posit that hypothesis. On the other hand, the exact way in which we conceive of God, and therefore as the counter God, evil, probably depends on our psychology.
Interesting. What would you say? So, what is Satan then? Is Satan real, or is it just something we label as evil?
Well, it's not real. It's very interesting that in the Hebrew Bible, from which comes the New Testament and Christianity, in the Hebrew Bible there is no such thing as devil or evil force or the like. In the book of Job, there is reference to Satan, but in the book of Job, Satan is God's chief of staff. It says that he meets with the council that God consults, and that his primary responsibility is supervising the planet Earth. That's all that the book of Job says. That's all that the Hebrew Bible says. And it is an identification of Satan as a person that is a henchman of God, a positive factor. The notion of devils and demons and fallen angels and angels themselves came into the New Testament through the influence of Zoroastrianism upon Judaism in the time of the exile in Babylon. The exile caused an encounter between Israel and the forces and ideas of Zoroastrianism, and that's where the concept of God and a counter God or devil, and good and evil, light and darkness as a kind of philosophical description of the kingdoms that are in a cosmic war in this world, and that cosmic war has as its battleground the human history and the human heart. There is no cosmic war. We don't need a devil to explain the problem of evil in the world. We're perfectly capable of creating it ourselves, and we have done that horribly. And it's unnecessary. It's unnecessary. It's possible that this world could be fraught with peace and joy and negotiation instead of all this conflict. And the result of that would be that the concept of Satan and evil would possibly evaporate.
That would be utopia indeed.
It would.
So, I guess our last minute here on explaining evil before we get to your other book. Mm-hmm. So, would you define evil more as the absence of good?
That's what Augustine said, and I think he was right.
I'm playing in the big leagues now, huh?
Yeah, right.
Hi, welcome to Adelante. This is Adelante Recovery, and my name is Yvette Kuglin, and I'm part of the staff.
Adelante Recovery Center has helped people in dual diagnosis for 5 years. We accept most PPO insurances and provide luxury accommodations and 24-hour support. To speak with an admissions counselor, call 1-888-242-4450.
A lot of time we don't even know what's wrong with us, and sometimes we need to get away to figure that out. So if you want to go for a little retreat out in Corona Del Mar, which is a confidential location, we're here to help. So we're only a phone call away. Thank you.
We're going to move on now to Seeking the Sacred, which was your second book. What is this book all about?
Seeking the Sacred is a 2-volume work, which I have edited. It's about the use of psychedelic drugs and what are now known as entheogens in the field of psychological research. It's all about psychological research and the way in which some of these medications are tremendously useful in the treatment of such things as depression and PTSD. A very important development has taken place in the field of combat veterans with PTSD. Certain drugs that used to be considered street drugs and horrible things are now, through medical research, being used to treat PTSD and to treat cancer patients terminally ill and reduce their anxiety. Psilocybin is a very important drug in that regard, and LSD used in controlled prescribed doses is very helpful. And this book, Seeking the Sacred, with psychoactive substances, of which the subtitle is Chemical Paths to Spirituality and to God, is a 2-volume work in which what we've done is taken the medical experiments, the medical research, and the psychological research that has developed out of these drugs, this medicine, and tried to describe the way in which this not only enhances the treatment of various diseases, but also causes people to have experiences that are mind expanding, actually. They give people a tremendously increased sense of psychological and spiritual scope in life. And this is the emphasis of the title upon spirituality.
Is this similar to, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the neuroscience now that has targeted the inferior temporal lobe. If they activate that area, people start seeing visions of God or hearing God. Is that similar to that concept?
It is. It's related to it. Right now, I am in the process of studying that side of things, strictly neurological aspects that produce the same kind of effect. And the incredible thing about it is that this expands a person's capacity to appreciate the nature and the quality or the experience, the relationship with God. We don't quite understand all of it yet, but we know it's there. And that's the important thing that drives us to do this kind of research.
This is fantastic work, Dr. Ellens. This sounds more of a sophisticated scientific research than Aldous Huxley did in his book Doors of Perception.
Oh yeah, it's very sophisticated. First of all, the process is much more responsible in terms of the control measures, the dose levels, the understanding of the research and the realities behind this, and also in the neurological area, the brain stimulation, brainwave registration, and so forth. Today, we have the machinery that makes it possible to do that non-invasively. And we can do it without any kind of trauma or discomfort to the patient. And so a result is that we can carry out this brand new kind of research knowing in advance what the controls have to be and what the outcome can be. And so it's a marvelous, marvelous world to be working in.
Really does sound like it. Do you think, here we got about 3 or 4 minutes left, do you think this spot that we discovered in the neuroscience and the part of the brain, the effects of these psychedelic products, do you think this is God's way of showing us a little secret of how to get more in touch with Him?
Yes, I think so. I'm a strong believer in the pervasive presence of the Spirit in all things in creation. I think that the Spirit is everywhere, and the Spirit is operating everywhere. And when we refer to our own spirits, what we're referring to is the presence of God's Spirit in us. And I think this is true in the leaves of the tree and the flowers that grow. I think God's Spirit is expressing itself. And it may very well be that we could say that it's God's Spirit that expresses itself in the energy that keeps the electrons in orbit in a rock. It may well be that the God Spirit is that pervasive. And if it is, it means that in these kinds of new research, employing what are God's products for new insight and revelation to us, is being in touch with the Spirit.
This is great stuff, Dr. Ellens. I can't wait to see that new book.
Yeah.
If you haven't read the books, I suggest highly that you do. Explaining Evil right here. We have Seeking the Sacred right here. You must get these 2 books. Dr. Ellens, I know a lot of people are going to want to know more about you and find out how to get some of your other books as well. Where do they go?
They can do that by going to my website, www.jharoldellens.com. My book, Seeking the Sacred, is so new that it may not be on there yet. But you can go to my website. You can hit the button called Books, and that will take you to my recent publications. And when you hit the button of a specific book, it will take you right to Amazon, and you can buy it. Or you can go to Amazon directly and punch up my name as an author, and there's an author page, and it will have all of my books that Amazon is carrying right there in front of you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Ellens, for joining the circle today.
Very, very pleasant indeed.
Thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the show as much as I did. Remember, wherever there's psychology involved, even in the world of evil, we're there. See you next time, everyone.